Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here once again for week 5 this time of the 2024 NFL season. And we're coming off of the first week of this season that I have been in double digits picking the game straight up. Super, super exciting. Normally, it doesn't take me this long into the season to get to that point, but the season up to now, I don't know whether you heard or not, has been a little bonkers. So it's not exactly a shock, I suppose, but still, it feels nice to finally be up and over that hump and say, like, I've got a week where I was in double digits picking the game straight up. And I had another successful week against the spread as well. So we're coming into this week, I feel, with a little bit of momentum, which is nice because the bye weeks are now upon us. We got 4 teams on bye this week, which means there's 14 games instead of 16. And this is the time in the season where you want to have some momentum behind you. So coming off of a successful week 4, I enjoy that. All right, let's open up our recording. Let's skip that. Let's do the thing. Even though it is pointless to do the thing, we're still going to do it anyway. And make sure that that's correct. Perfect. And we start our recording there, and that looks and sounds good. All right. And we'll come over here. Sounds all good. Awesome, Chad. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I did hear a little bit of crackling, like eventually in last week's episode, but it seemed like it sounded okay for the vast majority. So I'm super happy about that. All right. Gonna flip over to the right page here. Ready to roll. Again, I feel good. I feel good about this week. I feel confident. Which feels like famous last words, but we'll that's birds flying south. Okay, that works. That works for me. We'll take that. Okay, got that. Make sure I got that handy. Ready to roll. All right. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week 5 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024 NFL season. And as I said, kind of in the preamble to the live stream here, I feel like I'm coming into this week with a little bit of momentum, dare I say. Last week in week 4 was the first week this season where I did hit double digits picking the games straight up, which once again, the beginning of this season has been a real crapshoot and there are tons and tons of upsets and a lot of unpredictability. So to finally hit that double digits in a week feels really, really good. And was also successful against the spread, 9-7 against the spread last week. I did give it back a little bit on the totals. I only went 6-10, so definitely looking to improve on the totals this week. But look, 10-6 straight up, 9-7 against the spread. That evens my straight up record on the season at 32-32. And against the spread, I'm now a full 8 games above 500, which feels absolutely incredible at this point in the season. As you know, spreads I have struggled with at times in the past. So to be 8 games over 500 feels awesome. Taking a peek into the Bridgewater's finest pick'em pool for season 13 of this show, I did jump up 5 positions. I'm now in 20th place out of 34, jumping up from 25th, 296 out of 544 possible confidence points. It's just under 54.5%, which is a nice jump up because coming into last week, I was under 50% for the season on the confidence points. So to now be up around 54.5%, we had a really good week. That was 94 of 136 possible confidence points that I did bring in last week, which is an excellent percentage. It's just under what I would consider like a championship pace. It was 69.1%. Was not good enough to win week 4. A longtime member of the Pick'em pool, Dan the Sports Fan, was our winner in week 4. He brought in 117 of 136 possible confidence points. That is a clip of 86%. There's a pretty darn good week there for Dan the Sports Fan. Again, he has been in this pool, and a follower of mine on Twitter and everything, has been part of the community for quite some time. So shout out to Dan for winning week 4. Tyler's picks, that is Chris's friend Tensa, is still our overall leader through the first 4 weeks. 356 out of 544 possible confidence points. It's about 65.5% on the season. So we know historically that's not where the pace is going to be come the end of the year. But as of right now, that's good enough to lead the way in the pool, 356 points. So shout out to Tyler and shout out to Dan. This week, by the way, ginger ale. Gotta love it. We're going to take a peek now into Fantasy Corner, which is, of course, brought to you in part by my good friends at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. If you are like me and you have taken the jump into Dynasty, Keeper, or long-term fantasy football, the Dynasty Trade Calculator is the resource for you. You're going to find my affiliate link in the description below to this live stream or the VOD. The Dynasty Trade Calculator has got you covered for player evaluations, trade rankings, podcasts, a ton of great experts. Does not matter how your league is configured, the DTC has got you covered. So you can find my affiliate link down below in the description. And for as little as a cup of coffee, you can gain access to one of the absolute best tools available online to make you a better Dynasty fantasy football manager, lead you to championships like it's done for me. The DTC is an incredible tool. So across my 8 fantasy football teams last week, I was above 500. I was up above water, which is nice. 5-3 across my 8 fantasy football teams. In my best ball teams, my 3 best ball teams, 2 of them are still struggling, both in 8th place out of 10, but I am still in first place in one of my best ball leagues, which is incredible. I wish it was the paid one. Unfortunately, it is not. But still, to be first place in a best ball league through 4 weeks, I like that. I'm relatively new to best ball. So my 2 dynasty leagues, starting with the professionals dynasty, which is my league. I did pick up the win last week against Holly. That does even my record at 2-2, which is nice. That was a projected win for me, and I did get a pretty convincing win in that league, actually. And in Ante & Co., my goodness, another week in Ante & Co., where I either lose it on Monday night or it's a really close matchup and I just come out on the wrong side of it. So I lost against Emil. That was a projected win for me as well. I'm still seeking my first win in the Ante & Co. League at 0-4. I do have a week 5 matchup against Kat in Ante & Co. and against Gavin in the professionals. Both of those right now are projected wins for me. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, especially on Ante & Co. If I don't start winning here soon, I am big time at risk of missing the playoffs after winning the whole damn thing just a year ago. And I'll take this opportunity, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, of the VOD, of the podcast episode, however you interact with this show, you're going to find all my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for week 5 in the NFL. You're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool for season 5 of this show. You're also going to find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, where, again, we talk football all week long. A ton of great people doing these picks and talking football. And there's just a ton of great resources there for you on the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. Check them out. I made a promise to myself. This week was going to be the last week that I'm feeling gun shy about the audio. So Chad already mentioned to me that the sound was all good. Can I get somebody else to confirm with me as well? just on your end, that the sound sounds okay. It doesn't sound crackly or like I'm, recording this through a loaf of bread. If somebody wouldn't mind letting me know in the chat, I would really appreciate that. We'll take a peek at the chat here before we start getting into the picks for this week. Broken Ankle was here early saying, I won't be able to catch the show live tonight. Best of luck on your picks. Thank you, buddy. Chad originally said, I went 11 out of 16 straight up picks. Poor Miami, still okay. Chad says it's still okay and relax. All right, I will. From now on, I will. Poor Miami, yikes. Yeah. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. That team, and now it seems like Tua's going to come back like after week 8 or for week 8 or something like that. I mean, these neurologists are smart people, so I hope they know what they're doing. Same old Cleveland. Buffalo saying what just happened. Yeah, Buffalo got absolutely shell-shocked last week, didn't they? Same old Jets, and Dallas has some issues. Yeah, it's true. All of that is very on point. Martin is in the chat too. How you doing, Martin? Says, I hope to bounce back in your league. What a slow start by me. Man, I was just talking about it off the top. Same deal. Very slow start for me picking the games straight up. But here's hoping that, again, my first week with double digits, I'm hoping this kind of starts to turn the tide. All right. Without further ado, let's get into our games here for week 5 in the NFL. Again, only 14 games on the schedule. We've got Detroit, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Titans getting the first bye of the season, which again, I really feel is kind of like a no man's land sort of thing. You just kind of establish what your team is. You go on bye, and now you're not going to have another bye for the rest of the season. So that feels like a death spot to me. Those teams that get these early season byes, week 5 or even week 6, I feel like towards the end of the season, these teams are going to be in trouble because now you're talking about playing 9, 10 plus games right straight in a row with no break. So it's a tough spot to be in for sure. So it's worth keeping an eye on these teams that have that early bye. Excuse me. All right, let's kick things off on Thursday Night Football. Tomorrow night, a battle of the NFC South. That game sees the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road in Atlanta taking on the Falcons. Both of these teams are coming off of wins in week 4, which is nice, building some momentum. The Bucks are a team that my formula, I guess, my way of evaluating teams, that method, the Bucks, they love the Bucks. My method absolutely loves the Bucks, especially on the offensive side, where they look at being one of the top 10 in offensive efficiency. They're top 10 in the league in defensive efficiency as well. So these metrics that I use to measure teams, Tampa Bay definitely appeals to that metric. For Atlanta, Atlanta's a team that I don't feel super confident in. I like what they've done for the most part this season on the defensive side of the ball. That offense is still just lacking. It leaves me wanting for more. I feel like that offense should be performing at such a higher level than it actually is. When you look at, the weapons that they have on the offensive side, this is also a game that may very well wind up being determined by injuries to significant pieces on the offensive side, no matter what the final injury report says. Again, it's Thursday. The injury reports, I think, are kind of a fugazi at this point, especially for the early games in the week. On Atlanta's side, look, we all know that the usage last week of Bijan Robinson left a lot of people scratching their heads. Turned out he was dealing with a hamstring injury. He's no longer listed as questionable, so he must have gotten in enough of a practice today where he's not going to come into the game with an injury designation. As far as I'm concerned, because look, especially with soft tissue injuries, you never really know. I figure he's going to be limited if he does play. Let's assume he's going to play. But you got to wonder what kind of effectiveness he's going to have. Ditto on Tampa Bay's side, Mike Evans is dealing with a knee injury. As far as I'm concerned, he's 50-50 whether he's going to play or not. I believe he caught a touchdown, an early touchdown from Baker Mayfield last week. So that's 2 big offensive pieces in this game that may be limited or may not play at all. And that could really wind up being a determining factor. I absolutely love the way that Baker Mayfield bounced back, last week in a dominant performance for the offense there for the Tampa Bay Bucks. I really like them this week, and it's another game where I'm not 100% sure, other than the home field bump, I'm not 100% sure why the Falcons are the favorite in this game. I am more than happy grabbing this as one of my upset picks. Let's take the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road in Atlanta to get a division win. Tampa beats Atlanta. On the line, the Falcons, like I said, are laying currently minus 1.5. I mean, Tampa Bay's got 3 spread covers in 4 games to start the season. Atlanta's only covered the spread once. So I like Tampa to win. Give me the plus 1.5, and I feel pretty good about it. Total in the game set at 44. Atlanta hasn't been hitting a ton. I think they've only hit 1 over so far this year. And this is one of 3 spots where I really am pretty heavily going against the public. About 60% or more of the public are on the over in this game. On this number of 44, I'm well under it. I think this game will only barely sniff 40 points. I have a good feeling about the Bucks defensively in this matchup. So give me like a 23-17. I like the under in this. And again, I'm kind of fading the public given that. So let's go with the Bucks 23-17. Bucks win, Bucks cover, under on the points. Cracking sound I'm getting, but keep going. Oh boy. Goodness. All right, we're going to keep going. So we're going to do 3 games here, and then we're going to look at the Packers game. So we're going to start with the first game where the NFL is heading across the pond to London. The New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings heading to London. And this is, again, a matchup of 2 teams that, the way I measure teams, that metric really likes both of these teams. Really likes the Vikings, but really likes both of these teams. I think likes the Jets a little bit more than they probably should, but they really like the Vikings. I'm going to pin the Vikings with back-to-back road games here, even though they're functioning as the home team in this game. It's in London. They're both road teams. We know that. So I'm going to pin them with the back-to-back road games, and that is definitely a thing. Jets were on the unhappy side of things last week, whereas the Vikings are one of the only 2 undefeated teams left in the NFL to this point. It's them and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. This is another game where, again, thank you, motorcyclist going by my window. This is another game. I really like the Vikings in this spot, especially when you look at how the Jets struggled offensively last week against Denver. So, I mean, if they struggled that much against Denver's defense, no disrespect to Denver's defense, I feel like Minnesota's is at least that good, if not better. So what is the upside of this Jets offense against a defense that's playing that good? So I really like Minnesota in this spot. Feels good to me. Let's take the Vikings in London to get the win over the Jets. And I think this is the first of like 3 London games in a row. I think I'm correct in saying that. I think it's 3 straight weeks where there's a game in London. We're going to take Minnesota to get the win. On the line, Minnesota is laying minus 2.5 here as a favorite. Not only are they 4-0 straight up, they're 4-0 against the spread to start the season as well. So I'm more than happy laying that minus 2.5 on the Minnesota Vikings. Total in the game set at 40.5 points. Each one of these teams has only hit 1 over to this point in the season. So I'm more than happy, even though this is a really beatable number. Let's take the under on this one as well. Under 40.5 points in New York, Minnesota. We're going to go Vikings 20, Jets 14. So Vikings win. Vikings cover the minus 2.5 and give me the under on the point total. We head to Chicago next, where the Bears are going to play host to the Carolina Panthers. LA Rabbit started early today. I did start early today. I put it on Twitter a little earlier that I was going to start an hour earlier. I got a couple of early morning shifts to end the work week, so it's like let's do this a little early. Sorry, Carolina and Chicago. Bears are the home team here. Obviously, Bears coming into this game off of a win last week. Carolina losing after getting their first win of the season, I believe, back in week 3. Carolina, a team that, despite that win a couple weeks ago, my metric for measuring teams still really hates this team, especially on the defensive side. Like, they're woefully inefficient on the defensive side. They give up a ton of yardage, they give up a ton of points. It's just tough to go with a defense that's, playing that bad. And to top that, they've already lost pieces from this defense for the season, and they just lost another one. Shaq Thomas at the linebacker position. He ruptured his Achilles. He is done for the year. That's another piece of this Panthers defense that's just gone. I don't see this Panthers defense stopping really too much of anybody this season. And I don't really think it starts with a Chicago offense that, even though they haven't been lighting the league on fire by any means, they've been relatively efficient and they have pieces that can take over and break games. So I actually really like the Bears in this spot at home. Let's take Chicago to get the win over Carolina. On the line, Chicago is laying -4 here against the spread. I'm fairly comfortable laying that number. Basically, it kind of feels like anything under a touchdown against the Panthers, especially if the other team is at home. I'm going to feel relatively comfortable, I think, laying that number. So let's go ahead and lay the -4 here on Chicago. Total in the game set at 42 points. Now, the Panthers have hit 3 overs so far this season, but since I like Chicago to win, I'm going to lean a little bit more on their defense in this one. And let's go ahead and take an under here. Under the 42-point total in Chicago, Carolina. Let's go like a 24-14, something like that. I don't really see this game getting to 40 points. So 24-14, Bears win, Bears cover, and give me the under on the points. And then before we take a look at the Green Bay Packers game, we are going to look at a battle of the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens, winners of 2 consecutive games, travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals picking up their first win of the season, basically a do or die situation there for Cincinnati. They got their first win last week. So despite the fact that Baltimore has won 2 straight games, I don't really know what to make of them at this point in the season. They move the ball very well. They put points on the board. Their defense, I think, is average, and yet you can have a performance like that where you take a team in Buffalo, who I think is a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and just like beat the ever living you know what out of them. And it's a crazy spot just for that to happen. Just like they just that's their ceiling. And if that's their ceiling, where's their consistency? And I guess that's been the leitmotif of the Ravens over the last couple of years. In terms of Cincinnati, I think they're improving. I mean, it's tough not to improve from the first couple of weeks that they had. The band is back together. It feels like they're gelling a little bit more. Might be another couple of weeks before I could look at them as maybe being able to step to a team like Baltimore. So I think I got to lean on the Ravens in this, although I do think this game is probably closer than maybe it might look on paper. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens on the road in Cincinnati to get the win over the Bengals. On the line, as Chad just put in the chat, Cincinnati's taking +2.5 here as a home dog. And, we know home dogs tend to be really good bets. But since I like Baltimore to win, it's a fairly small price to pay against the spread. I'm going to go ahead and lay the -2.5 here on Baltimore. Total in the game set at 50.5 points. Both of these teams have hit 3 overs in 4 games. I have no reason to believe that this isn't going to go over this point total. I think this is good for a mid to high 50. Let's go over the 50.5 point total, and we're going to go 30-27 in favor of the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens win. Ravens cover the -2.5 and give me an over on the 50.5 point total. Still kind of crackly. Sometimes it's only temporary too. So here and there. Yeah. Okay. That's about what it kind of wound up being, even on the recording last week. All right. Let's look at the Packers game now. The Green Bay Packers on the road in Los Angeles taking on the Rams. And the Rams are a team that my method does not like. And I mean, for obvious reasons, the Rams have really struggled up to this point in the season. The offense kind of seems like maybe it's getting it together a little bit more. That defense, man, that defense is not good. They are bottom 5 in the NFL in yardage, bottom 5 in the NFL in scoring defense. That defense is bad. And you look at Jordan Love with Green Bay, though right now he's got the questionable tag. And this is going to be one of those things where I feel like Jordan's going to have the questionable tag every game for the rest of the year. It's just a thing. It's just the way that it's going to be. Jordan came back last week and they damn near beat the Vikings, a team that I think is objectively better than them. And had it not been for a couple of, missed kicks, they probably do. That's how close that game was. And even, yes, Jordan did throw 3 interceptions and he did look rusty in that game. But the 4 touchdowns and a ton of pass yardage, I was just like, oh, I love the fact that this guy's my quarterback. I'm so happy that this dude is my quarterback. Both of these teams were off of losses from last week, so they're both looking to rebound. Green Bay will have to try to do it without Christian Watson. He stop me if you've heard this before. He injured his leg because that's just what Christian Watson seems to do. And again, I love him. I really like the guy as a player. But man, can that guy ever not stay on the field. This time it's an ankle injury. I imagine he'll probably miss this week, maybe next. Dude's got to get himself healthy. I don't know what it's going to take, but God, that dude's got to get himself healthy. In any case, I obviously love the depth of the Packers offense. I really don't think the Rams have too much for them defensively. So let's go ahead and take the Packers to get the win here in Los Angeles. Green Bay beats the Rams. On the line, the Rams are taking +3 here as a home dog. The Rams have only covered once against the spread so far this season. It's -3. It's the highest end of my small price to pay. So let's go ahead and lay the -3 here on Green Bay. Total in the game set at 48.5 points. Both of these teams have hit 3 overs in 4 games. Let's take the over in this one. Over 48.5 points in Green Bay, Los Angeles. I got no problem getting this game into a low to mid 50. Let's go 31-23 Green Bay. So the Packers cover. The Packers win, obviously, outright. And give me the over on the points. I think we have a fantasy football question in the chat. I'm going to take a pause because I actually want to take a look at this. Okay. My running backs are Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Jerome Ford, J.K. Dobbins, Kareem Hunt. My wide receivers are Drake London, Malik Neighbors, Chris Godwin, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson, and my tight end is Brock Bowers. That's a pretty damn good team. That's a pretty good team. Would you do London, Deontay Johnson, or Godwin for Tyreek? I mean, he wants only one. Okay, so you're trying to bring in Tyreek Hill. I'm going to assume this is redraft. I'm going to assume this isn't Dynasty, although Dynasty might make a little more sense. But I'm going to assume it's redraft. So redraft, would you do, with the uncertainty at the quarterback position for Miami, I personally wouldn't want to do more than Deontay Johnson. Drake London would be a hard no for me. I mean, if you want to, if he'll take Chris Godwin, not that, take Chris Godwin like he's bad, he's not. But in terms of, I think, redraft value, I feel like Deontay is going to be slightly more than Chris Godwin because Deontay's his team's number 1 versus, Godwin is very clearly Tampa Bay's number 2. I mean, I would try to do Godwin first and see if he takes that. If he doesn't, then I would be comfortable moving Deontay for sure. I would not be comfortable moving Drake London. That's my fantasy football hot take. So Augusto, that's what I would try to do. I would try to move him Chris Godwin first, see if he takes it. If not, I would move him Deontay. I would not move him Drake London. I need to turn on notifications, to be honest. Cat, it happens. No worries. You're here now. That's what matters. All right, we're going to have a bucket of 4 games here before we talk about the Sunday night football game between Dallas and Pittsburgh. But let's start in New England, a battle of 2 wildly underperforming AFC East teams. The Miami Dolphins are in town visiting the New England Patriots. Now, both of these teams have lost 3 consecutive games. With Miami, it's obvious the quarterback situation is not great. They're down to their 3rd or 4th quarterback at this point, with Tua injured and Skyler injured and the popcorn guy injured and just about everybody. Miami's also going to come into this game on the short week, so that's definitely something to monitor since they, played on Monday night. My model hates the Miami Dolphins, doesn't really like the New England Patriots either, with the way that the season has started for them. The Patriots, at the very least, seem to have something going on the defensive side. Offensively, neither one of these teams are very good. I think Miami's defense is good, but it's inefficient. They give up more points than they should, is the way that I would kind of characterize the Dolphins on the defensive side. I think they've got weapons on the defensive side. They give up too many points. And part of that is a reflection of the offense has been anemic lately. So the defense is on the field more. They give up more points. Look, this is a battle of 2 bad teams. So in a battle of 2 bad teams, I'm going to take whoever's getting the points. And that's the Miami Dolphins right now. So I'm going to take the Dolphins despite the short week. I'm going to take the Dolphins on the road in New England to get the win over the Patriots. And this is another spot where I'm kind of being contentious against the public. More than 60% of the public is on New England in this game. I am going against that. I like the Dolphins to win the game outright. So obviously I'm taking the +1 on Miami, even though they have not covered one time against the spread so far this season. I'm still taking the +1 on Miami. Total in this game set at 37 points. Miami's only hit 1 over so far this year. I think New England has hit 2, I believe. It's such a beatable number, but I mean, if this game didn't get into the 30s, it wouldn't surprise me. Let's go ahead and grab an under on this one. I'm going to do like a 17-14 or something like that. Under the 37 points, Dolphins win the game outright and give me the +1. We'll take the plus points when we can get them. Let's go to a game now that at least promises to be more entertaining than the last one. The Washington Commanders, the 3 straight win Washington Commanders behind what is probably an OROY worthy start to the season for Jaden Daniels. They're going to play host to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland's on the tail end of back-to-back road games here, a team that my model does not think very highly of, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side. I don't think Cleveland's defense has lived up to anything this year, especially, and the offense especially not. It looks like they're opening up the window for Nick Chubb. So Chubb should be back to practicing and potentially, back in the lineup within the next couple of weeks here. So that definitely bodes well for them on the offensive side, might keep them on the field a little bit more. Washington has been tremendously impressive to this point in the season. Top 5 in offensive efficiency, top 5 in scoring offense. I think the defense still leaves some stuff to be desired, but when the offense is this good, you can get in track meets and you can win those track meets. I really like the Commanders in this spot, especially at home. Let's take Washington to get the win over Cleveland. On the line, Washington is laying -3.5. They've covered 3 of 4 spreads so far this year. Let's go ahead and lay those points, -3.5 on the Washington Commanders. Try telling me in the preseason that I'd be laying 3.5 points on the Commanders over Cleveland by week 5. My goodness. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. Washington has hit 3 of 4 overs this year. Cleveland has only hit 1, but that's a really beatable number at 43.5. I think both teams get to 20, so shouldn't have any trouble getting to the over here. Let's go over 43.5 points in Washington, Cleveland, and I'm going to go 27-20. Commanders win, Commanders cover, over on the points. Battle of the AFC South is up next. The Indianapolis Colts on the road in Jacksonville to take on the Jags. The Jags are still seeking their first win of 2024. It has been an exceptionally bad start in Jacksonville. In case you're following along at home, that last word was Jacksonville. Jacksonville. Bueller. All right. I'm trying to find anything positive to say about Jacksonville. Their defensive efficiency is not the worst. It's almost bottom 10, but it's not quite bottom 10. So that's good. Their offense is putrid. Like, it's bad. They don't move the ball. They don't put points on the board. They don't win games. Like, I'm not sure, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody that's a Jags fan, but like, trying to find the silver lining with that team is damn near impossible. Maybe Travis Etienne, but even he's not really playing like Travis Etienne. You know what I mean? Say what we will about the Colts, they're winners of 2 straight games, and whether it's Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco, I at least feel like the floor for the Colts is way higher than the floor for the Jags. If their ceilings are about the same, I know one of these teams has a much more consistent and higher quality floor. I'm going to have to go with the Colts in this one. I can't really find the answer or the pathway to take the Jags, even despite the fact that both of these teams are going to be dealing with injuries. And for the Colts, it's probably significant. I don't think we're going to see Jonathan Taylor this week. He's dealing with an ankle injury. I know they're saying, oh, he's okay. He's just a little sore. I would put him 50-50 at best. And if he does play, probably going to be a little bit limited. On Jacksonville's side, Josh Hines-Allen got a concussion last week. So, I'm going to lean out on it because it's a concussion, and that tends to be the way that it goes in the NFL. You usually miss the next game. So that's a big downer to their pass rush. Could be a big downer to the run game for the Colts, but especially if it's Joe Flacco out there, I have no problem taking the Indianapolis Colts in this spot, especially getting points to do so. So Colts go to Jacksonville and beat the Jags. And this is an upset play because the Jags, bafflingly, are laying -3. I don't know how. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. The Colts have covered 3 of 4 spreads this year. So yeah, even if you don't like the Colts to win, +3 is the play. So Indianapolis +3. Total in the game set at 46. The Jags have only hit 1 over so far this year. I'm going to stick under on this number, especially if the Jonathan Taylor injury does kind of come into play here. Under 46 points in Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Let's go like 26-17, something like that. Colts win. Obviously, Colts cover. Give me the under on the points. And we're going to look at a marquee quarterback matchup here. The Buffalo Bills on the road in Houston taking on the Texans. It's been a rough start to the season for Houston. However, they did pick up the win last week, which is definitely good news. The Bills, it's been a great start to the season for them, but they did lose last week. So you really got both sides of the coin here for both of these teams. Despite the loss last week, I really like what I'm seeing in general from the Buffalo Bills this season. Now, they are on the tail end of back-to-back road games in this game, so that is certainly something to, keep an eye on. I need to see more than one kind of impressive week from Houston before I'm kind of back on the train. I think from both an offensive and defensive perspective, the efficiency is just not there for me. They're bottom 5 in both. So they're just not doing the most with the football or against the opposing offenses. So I'm going to have to go with Buffalo in this one. I need Houston to show me a lot more before I feel like even at home, they're going to be super competitive with a team like Buffalo. Nice bounce back spot for the Bills, I think. So on the line, Houston is taking a single point here as a home dog, but they have not covered a spread yet this season. So give me the -1 on the Buffalo Bills. I like them to win outright. Total in the game here set at 48. Houston has only hit 1 over so far this year. I think Buffalo has hit 2, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the under here. We're going to go under 48 points in Buffalo, Houston. I'm going to go like a 24-20, something like that. Bills win, Bills cover. Give me the under on the points. I have another fantasy football question in the chat. All right, this is hashtag fantasy football week. Do I trade Devon Achane for Puka Nacua and Bucky Irving? I'm 2-2. It's PPR. I have JT and James Cook, but my wide receivers are Ayuk and Garrett Wilson. So as somebody who has Ayuk in one dynasty league and Garrett Wilson in another dynasty league, I feel your pain on both of those because neither of them have lived up to my personal expectations within this season. I think they're great dynasty assets, but again, assuming this is redraft, that's a definite struggle. Do I trade Devon Achane for Puka and Bucky? So here's my thing. I have a personal policy on not trading for injured players. Period. For somebody whose risk of re-injury for probably a month after they come back is relatively elevated, I don't think I'm willing to give up an asset like Devon Achane for somebody that's injured and not knowing how the running back situation really is going to play out in Tampa Bay. But looking at it right now, Bucky Irving is still the backup. And I don't think he was super impactful the last couple of times that he was out. So I could be wrong about that. But I don't personally think that that's a trade I would make. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the question. Your redraft, yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'd personally make the trade. I'm nobody knows your team and what you're trying to do better than you, but as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't personally make the deal. Sunday night football, ladies and gentlemen, the Dallas Cowboys on the road in Pittsburgh, taking on a Steelers team where both of these teams are going to be missing a key piece for when the Pittsburgh Steelers are on offense on the field. And we'll get into that here in a second. Dallas going to be on the tail end of back-to-back road games in this. They're coming off a win last week, but my model doesn't really know what to do with them. They're a top 10 in offensive efficiency. Their defense has left a lot to be desired this season. It is not difficult to move the ball on the Dallas Cowboys defensively, and it's not as difficult to put points on the board against them as it is for a lot of other teams. So my model doesn't really know what to do with them at this point, as if my model is the be-all, end-all. Now, they are on the long week, so they do have some extra time to come in and prepare for this game. Pittsburgh, a team that's coming into this game off of a loss, their first loss of the season, a game that I didn't take them to lose last week, did I? I think I took them to win. Let's see. I did. I took them to go into Indy and win. That obviously did not happen. Every team's going to lose. It's going to happen. And even after that loss, my model still likes them a fair amount. Most of that is propelled by the defense. I do think we probably see a bounce back defensive performance here from Pittsburgh. But here's what I was talking about when the Steelers are on the field on offense. The Cowboys are probably going to be without Micah Parsons. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He said he was good. I think the data probably favors missing a week or two. So there's a good chance we don't see Micah Parsons. He may have already been ruled out, actually, as a matter of fact. So chances are he's not on the field. However, for Pittsburgh, James Daniels, who I believe is their starting, I want to say right guard. He's one of their interior offensive linemen, one of the starting guards. He tore his Achilles. He's done for the year. He was having a incredible start to the season. He was one of Pro Football Focus's highest ranked guards to this point in the season. Whatever you feel about the PFF rankings and the way they rate players, I think it's still at least a viable metric. And the fact that he's now done for the year is a huge blow to the interior offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, again, Dallas might not have Micah. They might not have Demarcus Lawrence either. So the pass rush could certainly be neutralized, but it's never a good thing when you lose one of your starting O-linemen who's having a heck of a start to the year. So I think there's a lot of question marks here, but the one thing that I think is not in question for me is I think if this game becomes something of a track meet, I like the upside of the Dallas Cowboys on the offensive side better than I do the Steelers. I think if it comes down to having to have that game-winning drive, I think I'd rather have Dak Prescott trying to engineer and generate that drive than I would Justin Fields, even though I think Justin Fields has looked pretty good to this point in the season. I'm actually going to take the Dallas Cowboys here. I recognize that the Cowboys have a number of issues, but I think the Cowboys also have the biggest game breakers, especially on the offensive side. I mean, CeeDee Lamb might be one of the 2 or 3 elite game breakers in football. I get the feeling we might be en route to seeing a CeeDee Lamb game. So let's take the Dallas Cowboys here with the long week of preparation on the road in Pittsburgh to get the win over the Steelers. Now, again, this goes against the way the spread, the results against the spread have looked so far this year, because Pittsburgh's covered 3 times against the spread, and they're only laying -2.5. But I like Dallas to win. Give me the +2.5 on the points. Total in the game set at 44, and since I think it's going to be Dallas's offense that winds up winning the day here, let's go over on the 44-point total. I'm going to go like a 24-23. Maybe it's a last-second field goal there from Aubrey, who's having a heck of a start to his season. 24-23. Dallas goes into Pittsburgh and gets the win over the Steelers. Cowboys win. Cowboys cover over on the points. I get the feeling that might be one of the more contentious picks of the week. All right, just 3 more games to look at before we get to Monday Night Football, and hallelujah, we only have one Monday Night Football game that we have to watch this week. So that's definitely good. Field goal guy's insane this year. Dude, I was watching the Atlanta game and watching Younghoe Koo nail that, what was it, 58-yarder, I think, to win the game. Like, it's been a very interesting season for kickers. All right, battle of the AFC West. We are going to go to Denver now, where the Broncos, winners of 2 straight games, have certainly turned it around from some early season struggles. They are going to play host to a Las Vegas Raiders team who did win last week, but are in the news right now for all the wrong reasons, that being Davante Adams. He wants out. So it looks like they're trying to engineer a trade here. The Saints are emerging as an early favorite. The Jets, of course, because Aaron Rodgers needs everyone he's ever completed a pass to. They've kind of emerged as the two front runners. I'm going to say this, and then this is kind of the last thing that I'm going to say on any potential Devontae Adams trade talk. He's not going to get traded until the deadline. If somebody trades for him now, they owe him like $15 million. If they wait until the deadline, that number's like 10, something like that. It might even be a little under 10. So don't expect an Adams trade, I don't think anyway, until the deadline. I think the Raiders are going to use these next few games to try to highlight him as much as possible and try to get the right trade package for him. Looks like it's going to be a second round pick, some other draft compensation. I bet you they'll get somebody to give them a second and a fourth for like Devontae and a future fifth or something like that. That's kind of my projection on what the trade might look like. Model kind of slightly favors Denver here, slightly doesn't favor the Raiders. I'm actually going to lean on the Raiders because I really do think they're going to use this next period of like 3 weeks or so to really focus on funneling the ball to their best offensive player. So if that being the case, I think he's probably the best offensive player on either team at this point. So I think we're going to see a decent, showing from that. Let's take the Raiders in this one on the road in Denver to get the win over the Broncos. And this is the third and final spot where I'm really going against the public. The public is pretty heavily on the Broncos here, minus the 2.5. I totally understand that. They've covered 3 of 4 spreads this year, but I'm going to take the Raiders to win. So give me the +3, or give me the +2.5, sorry, on the Raiders. Total in this game set at 36 points. Denver only has 1 over so far this year. I think the Raiders might have 2. I'm going to stick under in this one. It's such a beatable number, but I only think one of these teams gets to 20. So let's stay under 36 points in Raiders Broncos. Let's go 20-13 in favor of the Raiders. Raiders win, Raiders cover, under on the points. Another division matchup here. This one, the NFC West, sees the San Francisco 49ers at home playing host to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are losers of 2 straight games. And despite the fact that that offense still does some really good things, we're starting to see a fairly typical Arizona Cardinals defense, which is that this is not a defense that's performing anywhere near a high level. They are bottom 5 in the league in scoring defense, bottom 10 in efficiency, bottom 10 in yards, this being the defense. So I think the offense can do some good things. They're pretty darn efficient, but they're also not generating a ton. They're just efficient with what they're generating. The Niners, I don't know that we know fully what the Niners are at this point. But I do think what we can say definitively is that the Niners are the better of these 2 football teams. We know about as much about the Niners right now as we do about what's going on with Christian McCaffrey's ankles. We kind of have an idea, but we don't really know for sure. That's the best way I think I can characterize the 49ers at this point. I think I'm still going to take them to win because I think their floor is higher than the Cards. I think their ceiling is higher than the Cards. Let's go ahead and take the Niners here at home to get the win over Arizona. Here's the tough one for me. Right now, they're laying -7.5 is what I got this number at. And that's a lot of points in a division game. It's not ideal. Let me put it to you that way. It's not ideal. I really think the Niners can cover this number. It's a matter of will the Niners cover this number. And I think I should probably play this smart. More than a touchdown in a division game. Don't love it. Might insulate against an upset here. We'll take the Niners to win, but I think I will hedge my bets and go ahead and take the plus 7.5 on Arizona. As Kat kind of puts it in the chat, especially since the Niners lost to the Rams, I'm playing better safe than sorry. Yeah, fair enough. Like, look, the Niners could blow them out by 20, and I'll just go like, okay, it happened. But I think it's probably the smart play to both insulate against the upset and take the points in a division game. So plus 7.5 on Arizona. Total in the game set at 49 points. Both of these teams have hit 3 overs so far this year. So I think we'll go ahead and take the over on the points here as well. Over 49 points in Arizona, San Francisco. So let's go like 33-27, maybe. Let's say this game gets to 60. 33-27. Niners win. Take the plus 7.5 on Arizona. Give me the over on the points. I'll do that afterwards. And the last game we're going to look at before we get to Monday Night Football is the New York Football Giants on the road in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. Both of these teams are coming into this game off of losses from last week. Seattle's coming in on the short week, having played on Monday night against Detroit. The Giants are coming in off the long week, having played Dallas on Thursday, a game that they lost, but did cover the plus 5.5 against the spread. And over the last couple of seasons, the Giants have been absolute dogs when it comes to losing games, but covering against the spread. They're always like heavy underdogs and somehow find a way to cover against the spread. The Giants have made me a lot of theoretical money by taking them plus a bunch of points. How the Giants are, however, a team that my model does not like at all. Doesn't like on the offensive side. Defensively, they honestly haven't been terrible, but that offense is just even. It's become obvious that unless Malik Neighbors has a legacy game, that offense is. We don't even know what they are. It looks like Devin Singletary has been limited in practice. It looks like Wan'Dale Robinson has been limited in practice. So the few offensive weapons that they do have seem like they're not operating at 100% at this point. I feel pretty good about Seattle here, even though Seattle's a team that I don't really know what to do with my model anyway. I think I should fairly comfortably take the Seahawks in this one. Let's take Seattle at home to get the win over the Giants. On the line, the Seahawks are laying -6. It's not the easiest number to lay on them, to be honest. They've only covered one spread this year. The Giants have covered more spreads than Seattle has in the early part of the season. And to lay a full -6 is not the easiest thing in the world. As a matter of fact, when I first looked at that number, I was like, "Oh, that's a Giants number all day, every day. Thank you very much." I feel like their offense can cover this number, that being Seattle's. Can their defense cover this number? The defense has been good in terms of like total yardage. They have not been good from an efficiency perspective. They give up more points than they should. So the only question I have to answer, I guess, is can this defense cover this number that the offense should be able to cover no problem? I think I'll take a yes because saying no kind of banks on that potential Malik Neighbors legacy game happening again. So I think I'll go against that. Let's kind of hold our nose a little bit and lay the -6 here on the Seahawks. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. Seattle has gone over 3 times this season. The Giants notably have not gone over once this year. Really interesting. But since I like Seattle to win, let's go ahead and take a marginal over on these points. Over 43.5 in Seattle, New York. Let's go 28-17 in favor of the Seahawks. Seattle wins. Seattle covers over on the points. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, Monday Night Football. The undefeated Kansas City Chiefs are playing host to the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans, losers of 2 straight games, on the tail end of back-to-back road games as well. Obviously, Kansas City is dealing with the loss of their basically de facto number 1 wide receiver in Rashee Rice. They thought he had a torn ACL, and then they all but confirmed it, and then they didn't confirm it, and then they said they need more tests and don't really know the extent of the injury, and it's like all kinds of fugazi going on here. Before I say anything else, okay, first of all, Rashee Rice is out long term. We'll say that. It might not be the season, but he's out long term. Rice is out. Pacheco is out. Kelsey's not playing like Kelsey. Mahomes arguably isn't playing like Mahomes. They do have Kareem Hunt now. And I have to pat myself. I have to do this. I have to give myself the Barry Horowitz, the pat on the back. Because as soon as Pacheco went down, I said it. I think I said it on Twitter. I know I said it in group chats, whatever. I was like, I wonder when they're going to sign Kareem Hunt. Because Kareem Hunt's going to be the guy. He's already familiar with the offense. All they have to do is hash out the personal stuff, which shouldn't be an issue. And everybody was like, "Oh, they'll never bring him back. He totally ostracized himself and da. And then they sign him. And then everybody goes nuts spending their free agent acquisition budget in fantasy on Carson Steele or Samaj Pirine. And I'm like, guys, it's gonna be Kareem Hunt. And they're like, well, he's gonna have a small part of it's gonna be a small part in the offense. It's gonna be a platoon. And now all the beat writers are already saying, like, yeah, no, he's probably the starting running back until Pacheco comes back. And I'm like, yeah, of course he is. It was always gonna be Kareem Hunt. I even put that on Twitter, I think today. Like, it was always going to be Kareem Hunt. Anyway, I give myself a pat on the back for being the guy that spent the fab on Kareem Hunt. I think maybe even a week before he was signed, spent the free agent acquisition budget to bring in Kareem Hunt, because I'm like, it's going to be Kareem Hunt. Anyway, that's my Kareem Hunt aside. Boy, it's so interesting because my model actually prefers the Saints to Kansas City. And that's why, like, I am. I'm really patting myself on the back. I absolutely am. This is kind of why I love dealing in numbers, because numbers are dispassionate. It's both a good thing and can be a bad thing, because it takes a lot of the emotional element out of it. And then all it is saying, like, the model prefers one team over the other. The model actually prefers the Saints on both sides of the ball to Kansas City. Kansas City's been relatively efficient on the defensive side, but their offense has not looked like Kansas City. Everybody knows that from what we've seen. Now, this is Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City and Andy Reid in prime time. So it's different. And this is where you can't just go on models. Like, the non-number stuff matters. In saying all of that, ladies and gentlemen, everybody loses. Even Andy Reid. Even Patrick Mahomes. Even the Kansas City Chiefs. Upset of the week. The New Orleans Saints go into Kansas City, into Arrowhead, and beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Want a really interesting statistic? Over the last 5 seasons, the Kansas City Chiefs have lost 1 game in the first 5 weeks. 5 straight seasons. I love this. So they're sitting at 4-0. They haven't lost yet, but for 5 straight years, they've lost a game in the first 5 weeks. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? I like New Orleans to go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. So, on the line, Kansas City laying -5. Both of these teams have covered 3 times against the spread this year. I like the Saints to win. Give me that +5 on New Orleans. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. New Orleans has hit 3 of 4 overs to this point this season. I like them to win. Let's lean on their offense over the 43.5 point total. 26-21 in favor of the New Orleans Saints over Kansas City. Saints win, Saints cover, over on the points. Funny, I really thought that pick might be a little more contentious, but doesn't seem like it. Maybe I'm onto something. Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the Week 5 show. That is it for the Week 5 picks. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and listen to the show and watch the show. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Enjoy the games in Week 5, and we will see you again for week number 6. All right, there we go, folks. The podcast version of the show is now done. Andrew, hey Justin, sorry I'm not available tonight. I almost want to pick the Saints, but Carver's new friend may be coming this hour. Oh God, is there another one, Andrew? Do we have another? Oh God, we've already got Carver. I already can't sleep. We're gonna have another one. All right, man. We'll see. We'll see what you might have up your sleeve. Gio, I wanted to mention you had put in the chat. Thought this started at 7. Normally it does. I have a couple of day shifts over the next couple of days, so I put it on Twitter. Special start time. I started at 6 instead of at 7. So what was the contentious pick? What was the pick in there that you think might be the most most out of whack? What's the pick that's the most out of line? I always like asking this question at the end of the show. Oh, Andrew says it's not what you think. Ooh. Chad says KC. It's fair. I mean, look, like they're undefeated for a reason. They're the defending Super Bowl champions for a reason. Gio, can you review your picks? I will lightning round the straight up picks just because you got here late. This is purely straight up. Bucks upset Atlanta, Minnesota over the Jets, Chicago over Carolina, Baltimore over Cincinnati, Green Bay over the Rams, Miami upsets the Patriots, Washington over Cleveland, Indy over Jacksonville, Indy upsets Jacksonville, I should say, Buffalo over Houston, Dallas upsets Pittsburgh, the Raiders upset Denver, Niners over Cards, but hedging against the spread, Seattle over the Giants, and then the Saints upsetting Kansas City. Lightning round of the straight up picks. I think there's going to be an audience that I think doesn't like that Tampa Bay pick, which I can understand, but like division game stuff like that tends to happen. And Pittsburgh. Okay. Denver's defense is definitely good. I mean, they showed that last week for sure. I think the Jets offense is like just as out of sorts there. So there's like, you know, both definitions of why that loss happened. Good for Denver though. Like that's a big win for them. Wow, the Saints. Yep, absolutely. Again, like I say, Kansas City again has lost a game inside the first 5 weeks in 5 straight seasons. And like couple of those were Super Bowl seasons. Some of them were like 12, 13, 14 win seasons. The uniting factor there for the last 5 years is there's been a loss in the first 5 weeks, and they're 4-0 right now. So if that streak is going to continue, they lose this week. That Raiders-Broncos game is probably going to be a shit show. Yeah, probably. I don't see either getting to 20. I mean, entirely possible. Like that could be another game like Broncos-Jets last week, where it was, what was the final there? 10-9? Something like that. And an offensive powerhouse. Mr. Purdy has a sore back, something to watch. He did have a sore back also going into last week. So it's definitely something to watch. You're not wrong. All right, folks, just as we're about to hit the hour 10 mark, I think we will go ahead and call it right there. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out to the live show and contribute in the chat. I always love everybody coming in and getting in the chat and making your voices heard. I appreciate the fantasy football questions as well. It gets me to kind of flex those fantasy muscles because I don't have real ones. That was too good. That was really good. Later, sound got better. Awesome. I appreciate that. I may be investing in a new mic as well. I've had this mic for a few years, so maybe upgrading there. How do I sabotage my opponent in Ante and Co? Oh, don't worry. I'll do it myself. Don't you worry your little head about that, Cat. I will take care of that for you because I'm just a really good friend. If you'll remember, Cat is my opponent in Ante and Co this week. All right. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Really enjoyed having everybody here. We will see you again for week 6. We'll probably be back to our regular time slot in week 6, but if not, I will let you know on Twitter. Thanks for coming out. Enjoy the games this week. See you next week.